ay takrala sa ichini arasi mugsara maksadu patikisaban ditiku.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you back to the Steve Malzberg Show, and it is panel time. Joining us here in studio is Ron Christie, a former advisor to George W. Bush, working with Dick Cheney as well, reading him at the Daily Beast, and of course, C. Edmund Wright, Breitbart.com, American thinker and great author. And gentlemen, welcome to both of you.
Always a pleasure to see you.
Glad to be here,
I'm
Steve.
waiting for the same from, there you go, okay. Edmund. No, I always like to hear, from both of you, make sure that we're all breathing. Okay, we started out with a short clip here of the video, the Taliban video that was released today, and I was just in a state of shock that this is how the transfer occurred with Sergeant Bergdahl. Why couldn't Qatar had sent a plane in and transported him to an American base? Why did our special forces have to go in to this hornet's nest? And I understand that there were helicopters, back a few seconds away in case something turned ugly. But why risk something turning ugly? Guys with RPGs, that could have taken down the helicopter once it took off. There were, by count, 18 people with RPGs that could have taken down that helicopter. Why, Ron, would this administration and our military put those men in that position?
Well, I have to tell you, Steve, every time that it seems that we look at this administration, there are always more questions that need to be answers as opposed to answers that are forthcoming from this administration. It is outrageous to me. Look at the number of people who are on that helicopter. You put the entire flight crew at risk. You put the folks who were on the crew at risk. You put the other helicopters that were surrounding them at risk. For what? For the release of these traitors, these killers from the Taliban. I just looked at that and I thought that is the biggest piece of propaganda that the Taliban has. And of course, you saw the clip and it says, don't come back to Afghanistan. And they are laughing at the United States.
Edmund, we have Lindsey Graham on a little later, and I talked to him earlier. He said the Taliban today, because of the release of that video, they're celebrating and they'd be dancing in the street, except the Taliban don't dance. I think that's a great line. But this is out. I couldn't get over what I was seeing this morning.
No, when you have Senator Graham on, please ask him why it took him so long to figure out that Harry Reid had gone crazy, which Senator Graham finally admitted yesterday after the Senate luncheon. But anyway, Steve, this whole thing has been a disaster from the start. I mean, when you start with the template that we're going to release 5 people who hate America from Guantanamo, and we're going to get 1 that hates America back, and then we're going to make a star out of his father who also hates America. I mean, gee, what could possibly go wrong when a deal starts that way? I really think this is perhaps the biggest exploding cigar the Obama administration has done.
Yeah, and they thought, according to what we're hearing, Ron, they thought that this was going to be, we'd be dancing in the streets over this release. I want you to hear Susan Rice. This will be 33, guys. I want you to hear Susan Rice on Sunday. And, this really calls into question Susan Rice's, I don't even want to say credibility. I think it goes beyond that. And what they think they could get away with in, again, calling the sky blue, green and the grass blue. Watch this.
Anybody who's been held in those conditions in captivity for 5 years has paid an extraordinary price. But that is really not the point. The point is that he's back. He's going to be safely reunited with his family. He served the United States with honor and distinction.
He served the United States with honor and distinction. Now, this isn't some poor stand-in for Hillary Clinton reading talking points. This is the National Security Advisor. Now, they tell, oh, don't rush to judgment. They're trashing the soldiers who served with Bergdahl, saying, oh, 5 years ago, their memories might not be. Yet she rushed to judgment, and the judgment she rushed to, Ron, seems completely antithesis to what everybody else and all the evidence points to. What's with Susan Rice?
Well, I think Susan Rice, to put it bluntly, is a liar. I think that she's lying when she says that this individual served with distinction and honor. Just take that one. This is a guy who actually said to himself, I don't want to be an American soldier anymore. I think the American soldiers are liars. He folded up all of his possessions. He walked out with a knife and a compass and a day's bit of water, and he made sure to walk off that base so that he didn't have to be in the United States Army anymore. That's not honorable. That's not serving with distinction. What that is, in my view, is being a traitor. And the fact that we lost at least 6 people who went out looking for him, 6 people whose mothers and fathers, their sons, brothers, they won't see those soldiers come home, but he's going to come home. And of course, the Obama administration had their way. It would be a ticker-tape parade. But you're absolutely right. The National Security Advisor, who actually signed off on this deal with his president and says this is honorable, I think it's a disgrace.
And let me run this by you, Edmund. Chuck Todd was asked about this today on MSNBC. He's with the president traveling, and they asked him, they said, what's the explanation for Susan Rice going on there and saying what she said? And he glossed over it by saying, and I'm paraphrasing, but this was it basically, well, you know, they all met with the parents of Bergdahl the day before, and they were all caught up in the euphoria of the moment, so things might have got a little distorted. And nobody said to him as a follow-up, what? They just let it go on to the next one. And I sat there like I wanted to bang the glass on the TV and say, what are you talking about? I mean, it just gets nuttier and nuttier.
But Steve, see, this is your fault for watching MSNBC. You get what you deserve. You know, one thing, it just dawned on me that Susan Rice now has had 2 absurd appearances on the Sunday shows. It was the Benghazi video appearance, and then this one. And they, Ron, they had the audacity, the liberals did, to call Condi Rice a step-in fetch-it for just carrying the administration's water. I'm sorry, Susan Rice, she's going to go down as, I think, one of the most discredited spokespersons in history. It's astonishing what she said twice now.
Yeah, it really is, and it's not, you know, it's not even a spokesperson. Like I said, when she was a spokesperson now, or U.S. ambassador, and she was a stand-in, that's one thing. But now you would assume the National Security Advisor knows all the details. Yeah. What the New York Times printed yesterday about the letter he left behind, what the soldiers have said, and what our own government has said about this case for years, not classifying him as a POW, and to say he served honorably. It is just, Ron, it's just mind-boggling.
It's mind-boggling, and I think it's insulting to those family members, again, of those soldiers who aren't coming home, who did serve with honor.
And there'll be no Rose Garden ceremony for those parents.
No, and particularly the lieutenant who died, who actually gave his life so that 6 other of his soldiers would live. He got the Silver Star for that.
In the search for
this traitor. Yeah. And where was his time in the Rose Garden?
Yeah. All right, folks, we're going to come back to part 2 of the Malzberg panel with Ron Christie and C. Edmund Wright. But if you want to weigh in on this or any other issue we're talking about on social media, Twitter, Facebook, email, here's how you do it.